Have you ever wondered when you'll die? Death is something that comes for all of us, and it's natural to be curious about it. But of course, nobody can know exactly when they're going to die. Or can they? As it turns out, more than a few people have, in fact, successfully predicted exactly when they're going to die, and in some cases, right down to the exact day and cause. Today, we're going to be looking at who these lucky people were, so that you can decide, did they have the gift of foresight, or did their predictions manifest their own death? Here are 10 people who predicted their own death. Number 1 is Bob Marley. Bob Marley, the famous Jamaican singer, songwriter, musician, and guitarist, is known the world over for his effortless ability to blend reggae and ska into his timeless music. But he had another ability that was lesser known. Considered to be a prophet by his close friends and family, Bob Marley had the gift of prophecy. Growing up in the St. Ann Parish in Jamaica, he would successfully predict people's futures and read their palms while his friends watched in awe. After predicting many events correctly, it unnerved people when Marley said that he would die at exactly the age of 36. When asked why he predicted that age specifically, he said that Jesus also lived until he was 36 years old. Of course, not everyone took this prediction to heart. That was, unbelievably, until true to his word, on May 11th, 1981, Bob Marley died from skin cancer that spread to his lungs and brain. He was exactly 36 years old. Number 2 is William Thomas Stead. Known as the father of the modern tabloid, writer William Thomas Stead was an English newspaper editor who claimed that he got a lot of his information from spirits and ghosts from the afterlife. Many people brushed this off as sensational. However, one article written in 1892 discussed not how a new famous ship may sink, but how it will sink. That year, he published From the Old World to the New, a story about a ship crashing into an iceberg, leaving hundreds of passengers dead and survivors rescued by a captain named Edward Smith. However, just 2 days later, on April 14th, that ship collided with an iceberg, rendering his prediction accurate and causing his own death as he drowned. The ship he boarded? The RMS Titanic. Number 3 is Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix was an American rock guitarist, singer, and songwriter with a mainstream career that spanned only 4 years, but made him a legend worldwide. But back in 1965, before people knew who he was, he recorded the song The Ballad of Jimi. This was a haunting track that paid homage to his best friend who passed, also named Jimmy. Now this, of course, could be chalked up to coincidence. However, when listening to the track, the lyrics state otherwise. He includes bizarre lines, such as, "This is my story," and 5 years he's not gone, he's just dead. Exactly 5 years after the Ballad of Jimi, Jimi Hendrix died of a drug overdose. Number 4 is Jim Morrison. Jim Morrison was a famous songwriter and lead singer of The Doors, an American rock band formed in 1965. When Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin passed away in 1970, they became part of the legendary 27 Club, which is a term referring to the sudden deaths of musicians between 1969 and 1971, all being 27 years old. As Jim mourned the recent death of Joplin, who was a personal friend of his, he sat around telling his friends, "You're drinking with number 3. That's right, number 3. This was a haunting premonition that disturbed his friends and family, but they did not think anything further of it. That was until July 3rd, 1971, when Morrison died of an unknown circumstance while in Paris, becoming the 3rd rock star to die in less than a year at the young age of 27. Number 5 is Pete Maravich. Pete Maravich was an incredibly successful American professional basketball player who, to this day, still holds the title of all-time leading NCAA Division I scorer. Also known as Pistol Pete, he was amongst the 50 greatest NBA players that the world had ever seen and was referred to by many as the greatest ball handler of all time. He did many interviews. However, in one interview with the Beaver County Times, he oddly stated, "I don't want to play 10 years and then die of a heart attack at the age of 40. Nobody knew if he meant this as a joke or not. However, what followed was less than satire. Just 6 years years after that interview, and at exactly the 10-year mark in the NBA, Maravich retired due to an injury. And exactly 8 years later, on January 5th, 1988, he collapsed on the court while playing a quick game of basketball and died of a heart attack. His age, exactly 40 years old. Number 6 is Mikey Welsh. Social media is a great way for us to share our thoughts and feelings, but sometimes it records more than expected. After a dream that he had, bassist Mikey Welsh from Weezer actually predicted his own death, posting about it on Twitter. On September 26, 2011, he tweeted, "Dreamt I died in Chicago next weekend, heart attack in my sleep. Need to write my will today." And as if that tweet wasn't enough, he then proceeded to tweet a correction as if he knew exactly what was going to happen, saying, "Correction, the weekend after next." Now that alone would be enough to make one's skin crawl. However, he later continued to support his prediction of his own death by posting a piece of art on Facebook that he wanted to sell that had a price tag of $250. However, there was a condition. Under the picture, he posted that the price would go up exponentially when he died. And 2 weeks later, on Saturday, October 8th, 2011, Welsh died in a hotel room in Chicago due to a heart attack, just as he predicted. Number 7 is Frank Pastore. Before becoming the host of a Christian radio show in Los Angeles on January 5th, 2004, Frank Pastore was an American Major League pitcher in the 1980s, mostly for the Cincinnati Reds. On his radio show, he discussed religious matters, but on his very last show on November 19th, 2012, he discussed something that shocked his audience. He featured a talk about mortality and told his listeners,
I mean, look, you guys know I ride a motorcycle, right? So at any moment, especially with the idiot people who cross the diamond lane into my lane, all right, without any blinkers. Not that I'm angry about it, but at any minute, I could be spread all over the 210.
Just 3 hours after that broadcast, Pastore was on his motorcycle riding on the 210 and was hit by a woman who lost control of her vehicle and swerved into his lane. After sustaining major head injuries, Frank Pastore died just as he predicted. Number 8 is Abraham de Moivre. Abraham de Moivre was a French mathematician known for his extensive work in the field of complex numbers and trigonometry. Friends with Sir Isaac Newton and many other famed mathematicians, he was obsessed with chance and probability and studying death through numbers. At the age of 87, de Moivre noticed that every day he was growing more and more tired, sleeping 15 minutes longer each day. Because of this, he guessed that when those 15 minutes added up to a full 24 hours, he would simply just die. After making his calculations, he predicted that his life would end on November 27th, 1754. As his sleeping pattern continued, many began to think that his prediction might actually come true. Sure enough, on November 27th, 1754, after those 15 minutes added up to a full 24 hours, de Moivre died in his sleep, exactly as he predicted, down to the very date and time. Number 9 is Arnold Schoenberg. For many, phobias are harmless fears that don't actually harm the person who's afraid of them. However, famous Jewish Austrian composer Arnold Schoenberg wasn't so lucky. With a strong fear of the number 13, a condition he suffered from called triskaidekaphobia, he predicted that he would die on a year that was a multiple of 13. Born on September 13th, 1874, he lived in fear every 13 years, paranoid that that year would be his last. On his 76th birthday, an astrologer wrote him a note informing him that his age was a critical number, as 7 plus 6 equals 13. And on Friday the 13th, 1951, the composer stayed in bed all day, anxious and depressed, hoping to survive the superstitiously unlucky day. But merely 15 minutes before midnight, he suddenly passed away. And number 10 is Mark Twain. Known as one of the greatest American writers in history, Mark Twain wrote classics like Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, touching on subjects that many writers avoided, such as racism and poverty. In 1909, Twain seemingly joked that he would die the next time Halley's Comet passed close to Earth. Earth. He stated, "I came in with Halley's Comet in 1935. It is coming again next year and I expect to go out with it. The Almighty has said no doubt. Now here are two unaccountable freaks. They came in together, they must go out together." At the time, nobody actually believed his slightly humorous prediction. However, on April 20th, 1910, Halley's Comet returned, and the day after, on April 21st, the famous writer died of a heart attack.